So, hello everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. And today we are here to discuss the Leetcode Weekly Contest 424, which took place today. So, we are going to discuss all the four questions of this contest. So, let's start with the very first problem. So, the first problem was pretty straightforward. जो कहा है question में कर दो. So, you are given an array nums and start by selecting a starting position current such that nums of current is equal to 0 and also choose a movement direction or either left or right, and after that you repeat the following process. So if current is out of range, this process ends, and if it's 0, move in the current direction by incrementing current if you are moving right, or decrementing current if you are moving left. Okay, so else if nums is greater than 0 तो decrement करके जाओ, and similarly direction change करो. Okay, so मैं explain कर देता हूँ what is given in the question. So this is basically the first problem. So ये काफी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड क्वेश्चन था. क्वेश्चन ये कह रहा है कि यार एक नम्स एरे गिवन है हमें, दिस इज आवर एरे, एंड इसके अंदर कुछ एलिमेंट्स हैं. सो हम किसी भी एलिमेंट से स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं इफ इट्स जीरो, तो मैं ऐसे स्टार्ट कर सकता हूँ. सेकेंडली मुझे एक डायरेक्शन चूज करनी पड़ेगी. द डायरेक्शन शुड बी आइदर लेफ्ट और राइट, एंड मैं इस मूवमेंट को तब तक प्रोसीड करूंगा जब तक मैं किसी भी एक एंड पॉइंट को हिट ना कर जाऊँ. मैं यहाँ तक ना आ जाऊँ या फिर मैं यहाँ तक ना आ जाऊँ. सो आई विल कीप ऑन रिपीटिंग दिस प्रोसेस. एंड इसमें हुआ क्या, इफ I choose the left direction, so I'll move towards left. If it is 0, then I'll move towards left and will continue my movement. If it's not 0, then I'll decrement it by 1 and will change my direction towards, and so on. Same will happen on the right side also. So suppose if there is an array which looks like this, 2 0 2, and I start from this 0th index by choosing my left direction, then in first step I'll decrement this and will start moving towards right. This value is 0, so I'll go towards right. This value is not 0, so I'll decrement it and will change my direction back. This is 0, then again I'll go towards left. This is not 0, so this is 1, this is 1, so I'll decrement it. It's 0, cool, and will change my direction back. This is 0, back. This is 1, so I'll decrement it. It will be 0 now, and my direction again will change, and so now I'll reach to this point and will end from this process. So this is one particular type of operation or process that I can perform starting from this index, which is having a value 0. Similarly, if I select initially the right side, then the same process will keep on repeating and I'll end at this point. So there are total two ways by which I can complete this process from this particular point. So in this particular question, we have to give the answer that how many total number of ways are there by which we can perform this particular process. And अगर constraints देखोगे तो constraints were pretty low, 100. So you can just brute force the solution, and which was pretty straightforward. इसके अंदर अगर देखोगे, so I had written a function f which is nothing but will return a boolean value whether I was able to make the array completely 0 or not. If yes, then I'll return 0, otherwise I'll return false. So I'll traverse on the array, and whenever I encounter any particular element as 0, so I'll call my function f, and for maintaining the direction I'm using -1 for left and +1 for right. So I'll call this function f from both of the indexes with -1 as left side and +1 as right side. and this is the function. So I'll create a copy of my nums because I'm gonna decrement every value. So we cannot do these operations on the original array as it will be changed for any further operations. And direction and current दो variables हमने basically बना लिए हैं कि just a second. Yeah. So यहाँ index और direction दो हमने variable बना लिए हैं. Copy भी हम सारे operations perform करेंगे and we'll complete this operation until we are into our indexes. Basically right side से भी हम अंदर हैं, left side से भी अंदर हैं. So if our copy of index is 0, we'll just move in the direction we are currently moving. And if it's left side, we'll decrement our index. If it's right, we'll increment our index. And if not, we'll decrement our copy of index by 1 and we'll change the direction. To change the direction, we can just multiply it by -1 and we'll update the index also. So after completing this process, if all of my elements are 0, then I can return true. Otherwise, I have to return false if any of them is non-zero. So I can just check for every for every 0 element in my array that how many total processes it can perform, and we can return this count. So this was the code for problem number A. Let's move on to the next problem. So we are not going to discuss the solution for problem B first. We'll move to the problem C. We'll look into the approach and idea behind it, and उसको समझ के we'll get back to this problem. क्योंकि this is pretty straightforward कि if two problems are there with just minor changes or some higher constraints, then we should always aim for the second problem, because either in both the cases, if we solve the second problem, first one is pretty easy to deal with. If we are not, then we already had built the idea to solve the problem, second problem, that would easily help us to do the first one. So in the second version of this problem, zero array transformation 2, so you are given an integer array nums of length n and a 2D array queries, where queries I is equal to in the form li and value of I, where each query represents the following action on nums. So we can decrement the value at each index in the range starting from n and ending at r in nums by at most value I, and the amount by which each value is decremented can be chosen independently by for each index. So a array is with all its elements 0. So return the minimum possible non-negative value of k such that after processing first k queries in sequence, nums becomes a 0 array. So let's first understand what is given in the question. So basically, this is the problem C. So we are given with the array nums and we have to make it 0 array. 0 array is the array where all the elements are clear. Second thing that we are given in the question with is 2D array queries, where every value is li, ri, and value I, where I can choose any index between this value. If we just take an example like 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if this is 1, comma 3, comma 2, so I can choose any index between 1 and 3, and I can decrement any value in this range at max by this value, which is value of I. So either I can decrement it by 1 and 2, either I can decrement it by 1 or 2, and so on, either I can decrement it by 1 or 2. It's my choice मैं कितनी से decrement करना चाहता हूँ, but I can decrement any particular number at max by this value of I. So ऐसे करके हम इस array को 0 बना सकते हैं completely. And ये इन्होंने क्वेश्चन में क्लियरली गिवन है that return the minimum of performance. So if no such exists, return -1. तो second thing is ये queries multiples होंगी. There will be multiple queries. हमें बताना है मिनिमम वैल्यू ऑफ k सच दैट हम इस स्टार्टिंग k क्वेरी से इस एरे को जीरो बना पाए। एंड इफ अगर हम सारी यूज करके भी जीरो नहीं बना सकते तो वी हैव टू रिटर्न -1 फ्रॉम द फंक्शन। So this was the question, straightforward. Let's discuss one example. So let's take 202. uh, this is our nums 202 queries में साइड में लिख लेता हूँ। here are our queries 021 021 113. so 021 021 113. So let's start with the very first query. We can decrement any value from 0 to 2 index by 1. So let's decrement it by 1. We cannot decrement it, it's already 0. Let's decrement it by 1. So after performing first query, our array will look like this. Let's perform the second query. It is also the same. So I can decrement this to 0. It's already 0, and I can decrement this to 0. So now my array is a 0 array. So I can return k is equal to 2 from my function, as after performing two queries I can make this array 0. So which was the answer for this. So if we consider the second example also, which is nums as 4321 and queries are 132. So these are our queries 132 021 021. So from first to third index, which is this, I can decrement at max by 2. So let's decrement the most possible value from every position. Let's decrement 2 from here, so it will be 1. Let's decrement 2 from here, it will be 0. And let's decrement 1 from here, it will be 0. So after first query, our array will be this. So if we perform second query from 0 to second index, we can decrement at max by 1. So what I can do at max is 3. Can make this 0, it's already 0, and this is untouched. So at max I can reduce my original array to this state. ये तो नॉन जीरो नहीं है. So even after performing all the queries, I cannot reduce my array to a zero array. So in that case, my answer or k should be -1. So this is the answer for the second test case. So इस तरीके से हमें क्वेश्चन को परफॉर्म करना है. So if we see, हम every query के अंदर हमारे पास करने के लिए क्या है. If I am given with an array and मेरे पास दो end points हैं. This is basically L, this is basically the R. So मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, इस रीजन के अंदर बाय सम वैल्यू मैं हर वैल्यू को डिक्रीमेंट कर सकता हूँ. कूल. सिमिलरली अगर मेरे पास L2 है एंड R2 है, तो मैं इस रेंज के अंदर अपनी वैल्यूज को वेल 2 से डिक्रीमेंट कर सकता हूँ. सो फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर रेंज विच इज ओवरलैपिंग इन बोथ द क्वेरीज, मैं अपनी एवरी वैल्यू को वेल प्लस वेल 2 इतना डिक्रीमेंट कर सकता हूँ. तो इट्स नॉट काइंड ऑफ सेम कि यार हम जिस भी रीजन के अंदर अपनी क्वेरीज मेरी ओवरलैप कर रही हैं, मैं उतने सम को डिक्रीमेंट कर सकता हूँ फॉर दैट पर्टिकुलर इंडेक्स. बट व्हाट इफ ये सम इज लेस देन और इक्वल टू माय nums of this index, nums value at that point, तो आई कैन easily get it to 0. कितनी क्वेरीज के बाद आएगा that is not known to me till now, but आ जाएगा. But what if this value is greater than nums? Oh sorry, uh, this should be greater than or is equal to nums. तो in that case ये आ जाएगा, for sure आ जाएगा जीरो की तरफ. कितने इंडेक्सेस में आएगा we are not known, but if this value is currently less than nums तो क्या होगा? इन दैट केस मैं अगर मैक्सिमम भी सारी क्वेरी यूज करने के बाद भी अपने इस नम्स वाली पर्टिकुलर ith वैल्यू को जीरो नहीं बना पाऊंगा, which is the in this case for 0th index I know the maximum I can decrement is 1. So this one is less than 4. So I know I cannot anyhow get this to the 0 and can at max decrement this by 1. So this was the main idea behind solving this problem, and this is a clear straightforward technique known as sweep line. वो हम कैसे calculate करेंगे for any particular index what is the max value? So we can use a difference array. There is a thing called difference array where two if there are multiple queries or increment decrements on a particular array between indexes, so then what we can do is, if let's suppose there I have to increase by 1 within the range L to R, so I can easily put L, and if this is R, so R plus 1 as minus 1 and this is as plus 1. Just by spline method we can just run a prefix sum starting from this point, and in this range every value will be incremented by 1, and whenever I encounter this index this will get decremented and will continue with the original value afterwards. So this was the idea behind creating an array where I know what is the maximum value I can decrement on any particular index with this query. So what about how are we gonna get to k? Because we want to know here what is the minimum possible k. So solve this. We know ki the time complexity for calculating this difference array and checking whether we are able to reduce all the elements to zero or not is order of n. So पहले हम इसी पार्ट को डिस्कस करते हैं, that how are we gonna check this. So let's suppose this is the first thing 202. Oh, okay, let's write it down. And the two queries are 0201021. So 021021 and 113. 113. Cool. So if let's suppose this is our difference array. Initially every value is 0 whenever I encounter this 0 to 1. So I know starting from this value I can get this 1. So I'll increment this index by 1, and right plus 1 does not exist in my bounds, so ignore it. Similarly for this will be incremented by 1 and right bound will be ignored. For 113 my starting point is this, I'll increment it by 1. Ending will be r plus 1, which will be this, it will be decremented by 1. So if I add these values, it is this as of now. So if we run a prefix sum starting from the first index, this will look like something decrement then again 2. Cool. So isn't this the same value that we can decrement max values that we can decrement for every index? Yes. So we can do this operation easily in order of n time. But how do we know that how much queries should we select? Should we select only single query or two or three of the queries? So can't we use a binary search for this? Because there is a condition check that I can do in order of n. So if we use binary index on choosing the total number of queries, so I can easily know that whether from this particular point starting from the initial queries Am I able to reduce my array to 0? If yes, search for a smaller value. If not, go for a higher value and take more number of queries into account. तो यही हम सिंपल करने वाले हैं. If this is my queries array, I know if this is my mid. So whether by using these number of queries, am I able to get it down to 0 by using my difference array? Yes. Cool. Search for a smaller value. If not, search for a higher value. By doing this, I can easily get my answer. But if there isn't any answer in this particular range, so my answer should be -1. So this was the main idea behind solving this problem, that we should use a concept of difference array and this binary search. So let's see the code for this. Yeah, this is the code. So basically there is a simple function ff which is nothing but check. Let me rename this. Left leave. So we had simply taken the size of our array and queries, and this function doesn't do anything much. This is basically creating a different array thing only till a particular index, because we are gonna check for every query on this mid, that starting from that whether starting from 0 to this index, am I able to reduce my array? If yes, I'll return true. If not, I'll return false. So we know that till index particular index I had to check. So the left value, the right value, and values are taken out from the queries, and initially left वाले पे हमें increment करना है, and if my right is within my bounds, I'll put my negative value over here to accommodate while running through it. So this is not needed. So basically we'll run a sum which will make a prefix sum of this array, and we'll continue putting it over that place. And if that sum is less than nums of I at any given point, I know I cannot decrement this particular value by accommodating all the values till this point. So we'll just return false from there, and if yes, we'll return true. So these are the particular bounds in which we are gonna check, and my answer is initially -1. So we will calculate mid, and if we are not able to find our answer till mid, we'll push our start towards the upper side. If yes, we know our answer and we have to search in the lower part. So that's how we can find our answer and return answer from our function. So I hope you understood the idea behind solving this problem and why should we consider this difference array and prefix sum. So if we now get back to the second problem and read it. So you are given an integer array nums of length 2D array, and similar way we are given a queries, and here is the change that queries does not have that value thing. It only has left and right index, and we can decrement the values at selected index by 1. We cannot decrement it up till value, we can decrement only by 1. So the condition of 0 arrays are same, and return true if it's possible to transform nums into 0 array by processing all queries. So you can use all queries, and you just have to tell that whether it is possible to perform all the queries and make the array 0 array or not. So if we just think of the same question that we did earlier, what is the difference? We can use all the queries. Cool. So we don't need any binary search here. Second thing, how can we know that whether we are able to uh, reduce all the array to 0 or not? We know we have this lnr, will make it +1, will make the next index as -1, and after performing all the various function that we are using, if we are able to make all the elements 0, Yes, this is the answer. So instead of checking just till any particular index which is mid, can I just not check from 0 to q, and after making a difference array, that whether am I able to reduce this to 0 or not? If yes, then return true. If not, just return false. So if we see the code for this problem, this was nothing but the exact same code for the earlier problem with a minor change. The function is exact same, no changes, but just return true if we are able to um, uh, reduce our array to 0 by using all the queries. So this was a straightforward question if you are able to get an idea of the second problem. So I hope you understood this, and just a minor change, instead of incrementing and decrementing by a value, we are incrementing and decrementing by +1 and -1. So this was the minor change. So I hope you understood both the problems. So let's move on to the last one, which is minimize the maximum adjacent element difference. So this was a tricky problem. I was not able to solve it during the contest because I was getting wrong answers on a particular edge case, or you can say a particular condition. So this is problem D. Okay, so let's give it a read. That you are given an array nums and some values in nums are missing and are denoted by -1. Cool. So we are given a nums and array, and all of the values are non except some, which will be treated as -1, and they are missing. Cool. Second thing is you can choose a pair of positive integers x, y exactly once. So you can initially choose a pair x comma y and replace each missing element with either x or y. This value can be x and this can also be y, anything. So you need to minimize the maximum absolute difference between adjacent elements of nums after replacements. So whether should I put x or y here depends on the adjacent values, as I have to minimize the max difference. Minimizing the max difference is, what is the max difference? So if there are 1, 2, 3 these values, so the difference between these two is 1, or I can say not 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4. So the difference between these two is 1. The difference between these two is 2. So maximum of both of these differences is 2. So I need to minimize this total maximum thing. So I should put optimally the x and y and also choose them initially optimally so that the maximum difference is minimized, and I need to return this minimum possible difference. So let's see how can we do this. Just a second here. So if we take an example, which is this 1 2 minus 1 10 8. So 1 2 minus 1 10 and 8. So this is the only index which is missing. So what we can do is we can choose any values x and y. So let's see what we can do at max. This is 1 10 8 2. We can put any value which will make this minimum. Okay, 2 8 6 एक दो चार 7 5 हो जाएगा. 6 ही I guess is the best option. Yeah, 6 is the best option to be here. So after that, so let's suppose we had taken 6 and 7 as a pair and we put 6 here. So the maximum difference now is 1 2 is 1, 2, 6 is 4, 4, 6, 10 is again 4, and 8, 10 is 2. So what if we put 7 here? Then in that case, it will be incremented from 2, 7 point of view. This will be 1, this will be 5, this will be 3, and this will be 2. So now the maximum value amongst these is 5, and the maximum value here is 4. So we can get the minimum possible max value as 4. Similarly, if we see the second example, which is minus 1, minus 1, minus 1, minus 1, minus 1, minus 1. So we know कि हम कोई भी value रख सकते हैं. We can just put a single value and वो इसको कर देगी. Let's if we take 1. So in all the cases, the maximum difference would be 0 only. So yes, 0 is the answer. Cool. So हमें इस तरीके से बताना है कि what should we choose, and after choosing what will be the minimum possible max difference of the array. So very first thing, क्या हम greedily anyhow can we choose some x and y? Just think of it. What should be the x and y? Let's suppose you try and fit x, but will this x yield an answer? Let's see. If you are just given with a value where every value is known, this is known to you, this is known to you, this is minus 1, and this is minus 1. So at this point, you know you can fix any particular value x for this particular index, or you can choose at max some mean or average value from all the indexes, and उसके accordingly आप x को fit कर लो. But because of this that x, can you find कि यार क्या हम y को fix कर सकते हैं based on that? नहीं, हमें नहीं पता कि किस से मिनिमम आंसर यील्ड हो जाएगा. सो आई डोंट नो तुम लोग बाइनरी सर्च को कैसे सोचते हो या आइडेंटिफाई करते हो. फॉर मी, whenever any answer exists in some range, whether and वो मुझे known नहीं होता, not known, तो not known के केस में मैं हमेशा बाइनरी सर्च की तरफ जाता हूँ, because that is totally a best idea to do, कि you can binary search on the answer and find out whether this is a possible answer or not. This is the best possible idea to identify any problem based on binary search. So here I don't know the answer, so I will binary search on my answer to find whether this is the max difference or not. If this is the max difference, then I'll check key whether this particular max difference is able to be used or able to satisfy my condition given in the question or not. If this is yes, this is a particular answer, and if I have to find the minimum possible value, we'll search in the left part. If no, I have to find the maximum possible value, we'll search in the right part. But even after this, how we are gonna check कि यार this particular max difference is a possible answer or not? That was the main logic in this question, because maybe most of the people were able to think of binary search, but how are we going to implement binary search in this is the main idea. Because if there is an array with some minus 1 values, we can fix the max difference and we can try to minimize it using binary search. This idea is good. But how are we going to know that this particular max difference is eligible for this array or not? Because we do not yet know the minimum and maximum values that we should use. So let's suppose if there is minus 1 at any particular index. So whom does this minus 1 correspond to? अपने previous value and अपने next value. Because जो भी difference आएगा, it will be coming from two adjacent values. ठीक है. अब I know this value, and as of now think that we also know this value. This is, let's suppose, 3, this is, let's suppose, 2, or not 2, let's say it's 5. So we know adjacent values known hai. So for this minus 1, if I say the max difference among them is, let's suppose, D. Cool. So if max difference amongst these two indexes is D, so let's suppose we know that this particular value is 3, and if we assume it's the minus 1th value to be x, so we know to satisfy the condition that a max difference for this array can be D or not, so we know either of the two things should be true, that 3 minus x is equal to D, or x minus 3 is equal to D. Any of these conditions should be true. So if we try to get x out of it, my x can be 3 minus d, and x can be 3 plus d. So either of these two conditions should be true, and these are the two possible values for this particular index. So I know these are the two possible values, and I can make two sets to accommodate all of these values. Cool. So these are basically smaller values, and these are basically larger values. Cool. So we can divide all of these possible values into two range. One with the smaller values and one with the larger values. And if we have to choose some x and y from this range, what I can do, I can choose the minimum of the smaller value and the maximum of the smaller value. Why minimum and maximum? Because we know that if we gonna choose the minimum x, so in any of the case, the difference between 3 and x, as x is minimum, so in that case the maximum difference between them will be within the range, that it will be less than max difference. Similarly, if I choose from the larger values, in that case also it will gonna be in this range for all of the values and not for just a single value. But एक छोटा सा इशू और है, क्या इवन आप, क्योंकि देयर कैन बी मल्टीपल वैल्यूज, 3 के अकॉर्डिंग मिनिमम एंड मैक्सिमम वैल्यू कुछ सुटेबल है, बट क्या वो 300 के अकॉर्डिंग भी होगी? द आंसर इज नो, क्योंकि उस केस में मैक्सिमम डिफरेंस बहुत ज़्यादा बड़ा हो जाएगा. सो व्हाट वी हैव टू डू, वी हैव टू पुट आइदर मिनिमम और मैक्सिमम वैल्यू एट एवरी पोजीशन जहाँ पे -1 है, एंड आफ्टर पुटिंग हमें चेक करना पड़ेगा कि क्या कंसिस्टेंसी मेंटेन्ड है या नहीं. Consistency is basically that the maximum difference should be less than is equal to D. अगर ये कंस्ट्रेंट मैच हो रहा है, वी आर गुड टू गो. बट यहाँ एक छोटा सा, बहुत छोटा सा कैच है, ये फेल करेगा ऑन अप्रोच वेयर, sorry, on a test case where there are consecutive -1 values. एंड ये क्यों फेल करेगा वो भी बता देता हूँ मैं. ये क्यों फेल करेगा वो भी बता देता हूँ. लेट्स सपोज देयर इज अ जीरो हियर, देयर इज अ जीरो, cool, and there is some value max. यही एक केस था जो मेरे अप्रोच में मिसिंग था थ्रू आउट द कॉन्टेस्ट, एंड ये मैं लास्ट तक वीडियो कोड नहीं कर पाया था. आई वॉज नॉट एबल टू थिंक ऑफ इट. तो कॉन्टेस्ट के बाद अब सॉल्व करके आई गॉट टू नो कि वेयर एम आई गेटिंग रॉन्ग आंसर्स. सो इस केस में होगा क्या, फॉर जीरो मेरे पास दो वैल्यूज आएंगी, which will be 0 minus max difference and 0 plus max difference. Cool. Similarly for this also, I will get 0 minus max difference and 0 plus max difference. ठीक है? So let's not take it this way. Just let me think of another case जिसमें optimally समझ में आए. Instead of taking 0, let's take the maximum value. उसको भाई maximum. Okay, so if we let's suppose we have some larger value here, so it will be this. ठीक है? So what we are gonna do? We are gonna choose the minimum of this, and we are gonna choose the maximum of this. But after doing this, we are automatically, if we put some minimum value here and maximum value here, we are automatically gonna make a difference among them of this. Basically, if 0 minus max d and 10 to the power 5 max. So instead of just creating some minimized difference, we are automatically adding this twice of max difference among them, because इधर से भी मैंने इस तरफ पुल करा समथिंग डी डिस्टेंस, इधर से ही मैंने उधर पुल करा समथिंग डी डिस्टेंस. सो इन दो पॉइंट्स के बीच में ही मैंने एट मैक्स इतना डिस्टेंस तो खुद ही क्रिएट कर दिया. तो इट वोंट इवन सेटिस्फाई द गिवन कंडीशन वहाँ जहाँ पे कॉन्जिक्यूटिवली -1 -1 -1 आ रहा है. So how is this gonna match to the other values also? So इस केस में मैं क्या करना पड़ेगा? Instead of just choosing the minimum value, I can decrement this max difference from there. Oh sorry, add this to this point so that ये इस साइड आ जाए, रेंज में कहीं पे आ जाए किसी. And similarly for the maximum value, I should decrement this max difference. So इधर से भी वो out of bound से किसी एक रेंज में आ जाए. So now this range is kind of ideal for both the minimum and maximum values. मतलब मैं इसके अकॉर्डिंग फिल करके अपनी एरे को, एंड वी कैन चेक कि क्या सारी वैल्यूज माइनस सॉरी मैक्स डिफरेंस के अंडर में है. इफ यस, this max difference is a possible answer for me, and if not, let's search for some more larger value of max difference. So if we see the code for this, so basically this is a function which is gonna use to check. उसके अलावा simple clear checks हैं. There are two straightforward cases also. The one is where no value is minus. In that case, our max difference is basically the maximum difference among these values which are already given in the array. And if there are all values as -1, तो in that case we know our answer is 0, क्योंकि ये तो straightforward question में एक example जिसके से form में दिया हुआ था मैं. So this is the basic check for this, that we are gonna count the numbers which are having the value -1, and if this is equal to n, which is total number of elements are -1, just return 0. Otherwise we can traverse on array and figure out कि जो maximum difference है consecutive elements के बीच में वो क्या है, and we can return it. Otherwise we are going to use binary search, and this is the maximum range, similar to maximum range of int. हम इतनी बड़ी value के अंदर search करेंगे and our answer is -1 also. So this is a simple binary search logic कि if some conditions is met at particular middle value, this is a possible answer, and I have to search in the smaller range, then I will pull my endpoint towards mid, and if not, search for a larger value. And this mid is basically the max difference, that I need to check whether the array can have this max difference or not. So what we are gonna do, ये छोटी वैल्यूज बड़ी वैल्यूज हमने अभी फिगर आउट करा था कि स्मॉल वैल्यूज एंड लार्ज वैल्यूज हम दो सेट्स डिवाइड कर लेंगे एंड हम एक लूप चला करेंगे इफ एनी वैल्यू इज नॉट -1 एंड उसके कॉन्जिक्यूटिव वैल्यूज -1 है तो हम उसके लिए क्या मैक्स छोटी और मैक्स मिनिमम बड़ी वैल्यूज हो सकती है हम डाल देंगे इन आवर वैल्यू सेट। अगर छोटी वैल्यूज एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करती हैं, नो इशूज, फिर तो एक ही सेट से वैल्यू उठनी है, वो तो ऑलरेडी मैंने फिगर आउट कर ही ली है, वी कैन रिटर्न ट्रू। अदरवाइज वी नो कि हमारी मिनिमम, और वी कैन से दिस वैल्यू एज x एंड दिस वैल्यू एज y। हमें दो वैल्यूज फिगर फिक्स करनी थी, सो दीज आर y। तो हम अपनी x एंड y वैल्यू को फिक्स कर सकते हैं। x इज बेसिकली मिनिमम एलिमेंट प्लस ट्वाइस ऑफ मैक्स डिफरेंस एंड y इज बेसिकली मैक्सिमम एलिमेंट डिक्रीमेंटिंग ट्वाइस मैक्स डिफरेंस। सो ये ऑपरेशन सारे हम एक कॉपी पे करेंगे विच इज़ बेसिकली एरे बी, क्योंकि हम सारे -1 वाली वैल्यूज को चेंज करने वाले हैं टू चेक वेदर हम चेंज करने के बाद मैक्स डिफरेंस से कम में एक एरे को कंस्ट्रक्ट कर पा रहे हैं और नॉट। तो दिस लेफ्ट ओके एंड राइट ओके इज बेसिकली अ चेक कि क्या मैं यहाँ पे मिनिमम वैल्यू रख सकता हूँ। इफ यस, उसके लिए हम क्या कर रहे हैं कि या तो इंडेक्स 0, क्योंकि इफ इन एरे दिस इज -1, तो अगर इंडेक्स ही 0 है, यस वी कैन पुट, अदरवाइज एब्सोल्यूट वैल्यू प्रीवियस वाली से क्या वो मैक्स डिफरेंस के अंदर है, क्योंकि देयर कैन बी ए कंडीशन कि यहाँ इस -1 के लिए वी हैड चूजन द मैक्सिमम वैल्यू, तो क्या हम मिनिमम रख सकते हैं? नहीं। तो फॉर दिस आई नीड टू check with the previous element that their difference should be less than is equal to max t. If yes, put the minimum value, otherwise put the maximum value. So this is the check for previous thing. And the right side okay के लिए that after putting this value, या तो मैं लास्ट इंडेक्स हूँ कोई इशू ही नहीं होगा, अदरवाइज अगली वाली वैल्यू को भी हम डिफर नहीं करने चाहिए। इफ दैट इज -1 तो इशू ही नहीं है, अगर या तो वो -1 नहीं है तो मैक्स डिफरेंस के अंदर रेंज में रहनी चाहिए। इफ यस, हम वहाँ पे एक्स रख सकते हैं, इफ नॉट मैक्सिमम रख दो। एंड आफ्टर पुटिंग मिनिमम मैक्सिमम वैल्यूज, सारे मैक्स डिफरेंसेस इस मेजर मैक्स डिफरेंस जिसके लिए हम चेक करने आए थे इस फंक्शन के अंदर उससे छोटे होने चाहिए। इफ उससे बड़ा निकलता है, जस्ट रिटर्न फॉल्स, अदरवाइज रिटर्न ट्रू। सो दिस इज अ कंडीशन चेक फॉर एवरी पॉसिबल मिड which denotes our max difference. So इस तरीके से हम बाइनरी सर्च को यूज कर सकते हैं एंड अपने कंस्ट्रक्ट कर सकते हैं आंसर को। आई वॉज मिसिंग दिस कंडीशन एंड ये काफ़ी क्रूशल और इम्पोर्टेंट थी। ये मुझे भी बाद में लोगों के कोड देख करके समझ में आया कि हाउ कैन वी कंट्रोल द कॉन्जिक्यूटिव -1s in this case, and the time and space complexity for this will be we are going to search for this, so log of we can say 1e9, because we are using this as the maximum value in binary search, multiplied by order of n, because this check function is taking order of n, because this is a simple traverse, this is a simple traverse, and this is a simple traverse. So we can say 3 into n, but it's almost order of n. So the overall time complexity will be log of 1e9 multiplied by order of. So I hope you understood the problems and the solutions for them, and thank you so much for joining.